Wisdom, the final frontier to true knowledge. Welcome to Wisdom Trek, where our mission is to create a legacy of wisdom, to seek out discernment and insights, to boldly grow where few have chosen to grow before. Hello, my friend. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, your captain on our journey to increase wisdom and create a living legacy. Thank you for joining us today as we explore wisdom on our second millennium podcast. This is day 1151 of our trek, and it is Worldview Wednesday. Creating a biblical worldview is important in order to have a proper perspective on today's current events. To establish a biblical worldview, it is required that we also have a proper understanding of God and His Word. On our Worldview Wednesdays episodes, we are in a series that are covering another detailed book review from one of today's most prominent Hebrew scholars, Dr. Michael S. Heiser. We are taking a deep dive and will share Dr. Heiser's insights into the question, which is also the title of his book, What Does God Want? And today we'll look at God Pursues His Family. As was mentioned from Dr. Heiser's book in last week's episode 1146, the coming of the Holy Spirit was the fulfillment of the new covenant as described in Jeremiah and Ezekiel. The Spirit's ministry in each believer makes victory over depravity possible. Think of this as a slap in the face of the supernatural fallen sons of God. But it is even a more direct assault on another set of supernatural villains. The Spirit's arrival to dwell within each Christ follower launched the infiltration campaign against the sons of God, to whom God assigned the nations he divorced at the Tower of Babel, as mentioned in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8. These are the supernatural beings who defected from serving God and became corrupt, abusing the people under their dominion, as mentioned in Psalms chapter 82. Jesus knew all this, but we habitually miss it in our reading of the New Testament books that come after the resurrection, starting in the book of Acts to the end, the book of Revelation. But this truly was the beginning of the end. Jesus' departure put the coming of the Holy Spirit into motion. While the resurrected Jesus was still on earth, he told his followers what was coming right around the corner. Let me read Acts chapter 1, verses 4 through 8. Once when he was eating with them, he commanded them, "Do not leave Jerusalem until the Father sends the gift he promised, as I told you before. John baptized with water, but in a few days you will be baptized with the Holy Spirit." So when the apostles were with Jesus, they kept asking him, "Lord, has the time come for you to free Israel and restore our kingdom?" He replied, "The Father alone has the authority to set those dates and times, and they are not for you to know. But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you will be witnesses, telling people about me everywhere, in Jerusalem, throughout Judea, in Samaria, and to the ends of the earth." If you keep on reading in the book of Acts, it doesn't take long to figure out what Jesus was forecasting. Once he leaves, the Spirit arrives literally as a blaze of glory in the next chapter, Acts chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. On the day of Pentecost, all the believers were meeting together in one place. Suddenly, there was a sound from heaven like the roaring of a mighty windstorm, and it filled the house where they were sitting. Then what looked like flames or tongues of fire appeared and settled on each of them. And everyone present was filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other languages as the Holy Spirit gave them the ability. The rest of the account tells us that the Holy Spirit enabled the followers of Jesus to speak all sorts of languages. They were telling the story of Jesus, his death and resurrection, to Jews from all over the world. Jews was the given name of the Israelites in foreign lands, who had been scattered all over the world in exile back in Old Testament times. The Jews who heard the followers of Jesus preaching to them in their own language were the descendants of the Old Testament Israelites. They had come to Jerusalem to celebrate one of the holy feasts on the old Israelite religious calendar. The people in Jerusalem who knew who the followers of Jesus were thought that the whole public display was drunken madness. It just wasn't possible that all of a sudden these men could speak other languages. But the Apostle Peter laid it all out for them. Honestly, he did more than that. He really let them have it. Let me read some excerpts from Acts chapter 2, verses 14 through 19, verses 21 through 24, and verse 33. Then Peter stepped forward with the 11 other apostles and shouted to the crowd, "Listen carefully, all of you, fellow Jews and residents of Jerusalem. Make no mistake about this. These people are not drunk, as some of you are assuming. 9 o'clock in the morning is much too early for that. No, what you see was predicted long ago by the prophet Joel. In the last days, God says, I will pour out my Spirit upon all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams. In those days I will pour out my Spirit even on my servants, men and women alike, and they will prophesy. And I will cause wonders in the heavens above and signs on earth below, blood and fire and clouds of smoke. But everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. People of Israel, listen. God publicly endorsed Jesus the Nazarene by doing powerful miracles, wonders, and signs through him, as you well know. But God knew what would happen, and his prearranged plan was carried out when Jesus was betrayed. With the help of lawless Gentiles, you nailed him to the cross and killed him. But God released him from the horrors of death and raised him back to life, for death could not keep him in its grip. Now he is exalted to the place of highest honor in heaven, at God's right hand. And the Father, as he promised, gave him the Holy Spirit to pour out upon us, just as you see and hear today. Peter was telling them what they were seeing with their own eyes and hearing with their own ears was a miracle caused by the arrival of the Holy Spirit of God. He told them that God sent his Spirit to tell them what had happened. The Messiah had come, been killed, and had risen from the dead, and they needed to believe. The result of Peter's explanation was stunning. Acts chapter 2 verse 41 tells us, those who believed what Peter said were baptized and added to the church that day, about 3,000 in all. This is usually the point in the story where the preacher moves on or backwards to talk about the cross. That is all well and good since the cross and the resurrection had led up to this moment. But again, we're missing something very significant about this story. And we will continue with that significant portion of the story in next week's episode. And that will conclude our lesson for this week from Dr. Heiser's book, What Does God Want? Next Worldview Wednesday, we will learn that God's Holy Spirit, who indwells every Christ follower, is the secret weapon or supernatural infiltrator to bring all the nations back to God. I believe that you'll find each Worldview Wednesday an interesting topic to consider as we build our biblical worldview. Tomorrow we will continue with our 3-minute humor nugget that will provide you with a bit of cheer, which will help you to lighten up and live a rich and satisfying life. So encourage your friends and family to join us and then come along with us tomorrow for another day of Wisdom Trek, Creating a Legacy. If you'd like to listen to any of our past 1,150 treks or read the Wisdom Journals, they are all available at wisdom-trek.com. And I encourage you to subscribe to Wisdom Trek on your favorite podcast player so that each day's trek will be downloaded to you automatically. And thank you so much for allowing me to be your guide, your mentor, but most importantly, I am your friend as I serve you through the Wisdom Trek podcast and journal each day. And as we take this trek of life together, let us always live abundantly, love unconditionally, listen intentionally, learn continuously, lend to others generously, lead with integrity, and then leave a living legacy each day. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, reminding you to keep moving forward, enjoy your journey, and then create a great day every day. See you tomorrow.